2 Virginians are facing fire for being part of a county-sanctioned militia. They're being painted as especially dangerous because they also happen to be top-performing members of the Virginia Army National Guard. A reporter has happily exposed them to scrutiny for breaking military rules against alleged anti-government behavior, and that report came out on none other than military.com. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. A common, though false, argument against the Second Amendment is that it's reserved only for a well-regulated militia. An even worse argument is that it should only be for current members of the armed forces. Well, Staff Sergeants Daniel Abbott and Alexandra Griffith fit both bills, and yet people still have a problem. Abbott was named as the Virginia National Guard's Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year in 2023. He has been in competitions for National Guardsmen, and he holds both infantry and horizontal construction engineer positions. Griffith is a battalion-level administrator, a combat engineer, and an infantryman. She's also won marksmanship competitions. Together, they run the Campbell County Militia, which runs in the rural area outside of Lynchburg, Virginia, and in 2020 was officially recognized by the county in a 6-to-1 vote by the Campbell County's Board of Supervisors to serve as a barrier against a tyrannical government. It was formed almost 5 years ago after all those Democrats got elected and started introducing gun laws that led to the famous 2020 VCDL lobby day that made media outlets suddenly decide that Boog Boys were violent white supremacist extremists because the state's lobby day just so happens to always fall on Martin Luther King Day, and gun rights got the most attention that year. Literally, that's how they made the connection. And got one of my t-shirt designs banned from the internet. Thank you, media randos. While both Abbott and Griffith are prominent members of the militia, the article focuses mostly on Abbott for being the group's commander. The report complains that the militia is mostly white in a mostly white county, states that it was formed in 2020 after the white population dropped from 70% to 60%, and uses this to suggest that there's some racism on top of the anti-government extremism. Now, 2020 was again also the year that Democrats threatened to take away all gun rights in the state, strip sheriff's departments of any Second Amendment supporters, and famously locked people in their houses for months, just like many other states in the country. But no, it has to be, according to this report, that the state got 10% more people of color over 10 years. It couldn't possibly be anything else. Now, before I tell you how the claims against these two got even worse, who made them, and the fallout because of it, this video is brought to you with the help of the attorneys on retainer. These are the people that you want in your corner if you ever find yourself in a self-defense incident. These folks are actual attorneys whose entire job it is to give you legal advice and represent you if you use your gun in self-defense. They are not an insurance company, so their only requirements are that the incident happened after you signed up and that you reasonably acted within good faith. They are not there to protect their own butts with fine print or liability. They don't drop you if you are facing criminal charges, and you are not sent through an insurance adjuster before a lawyer even looks at your case, which is what typically happens with insurance companies. They will cover anything from felonies to misdemeanors, appeals, and even bail bonds. Literally, they are a group of firearm defense attorneys that you are paying to be there when you need them. So switch on over from your existing self-defense coverage today by heading on over to my link down in the description and using code LibertyDoll to get $50 off your individual sign-up. So this guy, Steve Banan, is a DC-based reporter covering extremist organizations and is allegedly an Afghanistan vet that focuses on how extremist groups prey on veterans and specifically recruit them to destroy national security. He also claims that being a member of the armed services and complaining about the tyranny infecting our government goes against their oath to defend against enemies both foreign and domestic. He claims to have reviewed hours of footage of militia meetings and says that it provides video proof of Abbott threatening the U.S. government and saying that his goal is to wage war against, again, the U.S. government. The only proof that he provides is this quote. Our government is the greatest threat to our safety and security, Abbott said at one event earlier this year. Power is akin to force. I would argue there are only two forces man has direct access to. One of those is violence and the threat of violence. Which you could read as Abbott threatening violence, or pointing out that the government conducts its affairs through threats of violence. You don't follow the law, you get arrested, you go to jail, bad things happen. Technically speaking, that is threat of violence. The President of the United States saying that the citizens can never step up and defend themselves against the government because the government has bombs and planes is a threat of violence. Abbott allegedly later called the militia a force of arms in military organization, which Banan also uses to prove his point, but he left out some key points that we'll get to in a minute. Showing somebody didn't do their homework. And the only quote from Griffith proving this alleged white supremacy, anti-government extremism reads, "There is a place for women, children, and teens," which was allegedly said to potential militia recruits. Huh, inclusivity. Terrifying. Banan then notes how the militia's social media is full of photos of them doing community service, picking up litter, and volunteering at food pantries. From here, he meanders into a comparison to the KKK, because apparently the KKK also did some community service once, and then claims that the militia has plans to go to war against the Biden administration. The evidence that he provides is an unattributed Facebook quote about Biden's immigration policies, which somehow makes the militia an anti-government KKK. That is the entire sum total of the evidence provided in this report. Yet Banan claims that their participation in the militia runs afoul of a new policy clarifying that soldiers are forbidden from participating in radical causes, including anti-government activity. This activity is defined as threats of violence against the government, saying that any actions that include advocating, engaging in, or supporting the overthrow of the government by force or violence, or seeking to alter the forms of government by unconstitutional or other unlawful means, such as sedition, even in circumstances where it would be constitutionally protected in a civilian setting, are prohibited. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth issued this policy after a post-January 6th congressional mandate made to ensure that military members don't have conflicts of interest that could stop them from following orders. Other prohibited activities include supporting the NRA or expressing pro-Second Amendment views. Nevertheless, this lack of evidence thought that it was enough to warrant an expose and claim that this was enough of a smoking gun to call for them to be kicked out of the military. And in fact, that article led to an investigation. An investigation by the Virginia Army National Guard into a militia that is endorsed and was created by the county government. And it turns out that, of course, these quotes were cherry-picked and wrong. When talking about the militia being a force of arms, it turns out that the quote about being a military organization and force of arms was deliberately cut out of a longer quote about an hour into a meeting when Abbott was asked about the group's legal status. He said, "We are not a paramilitary organization. This is a military organization. This is a force of arms in the hands of local government." Note that he says that this militia is in the hands of the local government, because the part of the county vote that Banan left out was the part about also establishing a county right for residents to participate in and train with military organizations in order to defend themselves, the community, and respond to a crisis during a time when the governor was threatening to shut down most of the sheriff's departments in the state over their support for Second Amendment rights. He was literally threatening to take law enforcement out of these areas, and so the county said, well, okay, then we'll have a militia to serve as law enforcement if we need it. It also establishes the militia as a force that the president or governor can call upon when needed. They have worked closely with local and state and apparently even federal officials, which provides pretty important context to the rest of Banan's claims. Now, Abbott says that he has never kept the militia a secret, that his superior officers knew about it, he's done media articles, etc., even had an interview in the New York Times, and no one cared until this one guy complained about it and demanded that Abbott and Griffith be kicked out of the military for extremist misconduct, an allegation which basically gets people canceled these days. Now, Abbott and Griffith, who are married, of course deny the claims. They point to the militia website, which explains they are a group that teach people self-defense, homesteading, medical treatment, navigation, and emergency response skills to help strengthen the local community. Meanwhile, the Southern Poverty Law Center jumped on board, claiming that the Campbell County Militia was created and formally recognized in direct response to George Floyd's death and the BLM movement, despite actually forming several months before Floyd's death. Now, both the SPLC and Banan also failed to check out the militia's bylaws, which forbid racist behavior, discrimination, or anything in that ilk. They also both failed to read the militia's mission statement, which specifically mentions civic duty and encouraging people to get involved in their local and county governments and take responsibility for their communities. I don't understand how an anti-government extremist organization is telling people to get out and vote and be involved in their county government. But of course, that doesn't make for a good fear-mongering story. As for what the National Guard's investigation has turned up, well, we don't know yet. They allegedly told Military.com that they welcome the focus on dangerous extremism. A Military.com piece confirming the investigation also didn't do their homework and repeated Banan's same lies, with both concluding that Virginia was moving too slow in kicking out potential domestic terrorists. But the second article was also written by an ex-CNN guy, so I guess that explains some things. In the end, it is bizarre that someone would claim a militia endorsed, supported, and formed by the county government is planning to overthrow the government. They even had U.S. congressmen and local politicians at their latest muster. Local councilmen signed up as new members. Like, how are these people even considered reporters? But it just goes to show that as much as people say, oh no, the military is pro-freedom, pro-rights, pro-the people, there are people within it, and veterans, that would call that claim extremism and accuse you of being a terrorist because of it. There are people in the military and congressional orders to purge anyone from the military who show support for the Second Amendment, or militias, or conservative or libertarian politics. This is not news. This is direct and documented fact out of the Biden administration after January 6th, because they want people that will follow orders, even if those orders are unconstitutional and go against their oath. If we get any updates on this investigation, I will be sure to drop a video for you guys about it. I suspect that this will not be the last time that we have some sort of story like this, but that will remain to be seen. For now, you guys know the drill for all of the algorithm things. And as always, thanks for tuning in, stay safe out there, and happy shooting.